The stars above Velha Prime had once been beautiful. Now they were hidden behind the dark shapes of enemy warships. For 3 long cycles, the Krath Empire had surrounded the planet. Their ships hung in space like hungry predators waiting for their prey to die. Ambassador Yuna stood at the tall window of the council chamber. She was old, even by Velhari standards. Her pale blue skin had turned gray with age and worry. Her large eyes, which had once sparkled with hope, now looked tired and sad. Behind her, the other council members argued in quiet, desperate voices. The Velhari were a peaceful people. They had never built weapons. They had never trained soldiers. For thousands of years, they had lived in harmony with nature and with each other. They believed that violence was the way of primitive species. They believed that kindness and wisdom would always win in the end. They had been wrong. The Krath had come without warning. Their massive warships had appeared in the sky one morning and had never left. They wanted Velha Prime. They wanted its rich soil, its clean water, and its gentle climate. Most of all, they wanted the Velhari gone. At first, the Krath had demanded surrender. When the Velhari refused, the siege began. No ships could enter or leave the planet. Food supplies ran low. Medicine became rare. A terrible plague swept through the cities, and the Velhari had no way to stop it. Yuna turned away from the window. Her heart was heavy with grief. Just yesterday, she had buried her daughter. The plague had taken her in the night. Now only her granddaughter remained, and the child was sick too. "We cannot wait any longer," said Elder Baram. His voice was weak and tired. "Our people are dying. If we do nothing, there will be no Velhari left to save." "But what can we do?" asked another council member. "We have no weapons. We have no allies. The Galactic Council has refused to help us. They say they cannot interfere in territorial disputes." Yuna closed her eyes. She remembered something she had read many cycles ago. A report from a Galactic Council survey team. They had discovered a new species on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. The species was young and primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently learned to travel between stars. But there was something special about them. The survey team had noted their advanced medical science. These creatures, called humans, had developed treatments for diseases that other species could not cure. They had created machines that could look inside a body without cutting it open. They had learned to replace damaged organs with new ones grown in laboratories. The Galactic Council had classified them as a minor species, primitive, harmless, useful only for their medical knowledge. Yuna opened her eyes. "There is one possibility," she said slowly. "The humans." The council fell silent. Everyone looked at her with confusion. "The humans?" said Elder Baram. "Those primitive creatures? What could they possibly do for us?" "They are skilled in medicine," Yuna replied. "Perhaps more skilled than any species in the galaxy. If we ask them for help, they might send doctors. They might send medicine. It is a small hope, but it is the only hope we have left." The council discussed the idea for hours. Some said it was foolish. Some said it was desperate. But in the end, they agreed. They had nothing left to lose. That night, Yuna stood before the communication array. Her hands trembled as she prepared the message. She did not know if the humans would hear it. She did not know if they would care. But she had to try. She pressed the button and began to speak. "This is Ambassador Yuna of the Velhari Collective. We are a peaceful people. We have never harmed anyone. But now we face extinction. The Krath Empire has surrounded our world. Our people are dying from disease and starvation. We have no weapons. We have no way to defend ourselves." She paused. Tears rolled down her blue cheeks. "We have heard of your medical knowledge. We have heard that you can heal the sick and cure the dying. Please, we beg you, send us doctors. Send us medicine. Help us save our people. This is our last hope. Please help us." The message flew across the stars at the speed of light. It passed through empty space, past dead worlds and burning suns. It traveled for days until it finally reached a small blue planet called Earth. In the headquarters of the United Terran Republic, A young officer named Minji was the first to hear the message. She listened to it 3 times, her face growing more serious each time. Then she picked up her communicator and called her commander. Within the hour, the message had reached Fleet Admiral Do-hyun. He sat in his office, a room filled with maps and screens showing ship positions across the galaxy. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen many battles and lost many friends, but he had never heard a message like this one. He played it again, listening carefully to every word. The voice was alien, but the fear and desperation were unmistakably real. A peaceful species, surrounded by enemies, begging for help, asking only for doctors and medicine. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of Seoul, the city where he had been born. He thought about his own family. He thought about what he would do if they were trapped and dying. He turned to his aide. Call a meeting of the fleet command. Everyone, now. 1 hour later, Do-hyun stood before the highest military leaders of Earth. He played the message for them. The room was silent. As they listened, the Velhari have asked for medical aid, Do-hyun said when the message ended. They are peaceful. They are dying. And they are surrounded by an enemy fleet that will not let help reach them. General Woo Jin, commander of the ground forces, spoke first. If we send medical ships, the Krath will destroy them before they reach the planet. Exactly, said Do-hyun. That is why we will not send medical ships alone. He pressed a button on the table. A holographic map appeared, showing the position of Velha Prime and the Krath blockade. We will send the Third Fleet. Full combat configuration. 200 warships, 50,000 soldiers. And yes, we will also send doctors, nurses, and enough medicine to treat a planet. The room erupted in voices. Some supported the plan. Others said it was too dangerous. They were a young species. They had never fought in a galactic war. The Krath Empire was ancient and powerful. A representative from the Galactic Council, who had been observing the meeting, stood up. He was a tall, thin creature with silver skin. Admiral, he said, the Velhari asked for medical aid. They did not ask for warships. You would be escalating a simple humanitarian mission into a military confrontation. Do-hyun looked at the alien for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. You misunderstand us, he said quietly. Humans do not send healers into danger without protection. Where we go to heal, we go prepared to protect. Our doctors will save lives on that planet. But first, our soldiers will make sure they can work in peace. The council representative started to protest, but Do-hyun raised his hand. The decision is made. The Third Fleet launches in 6 hours. As the meeting ended and officers rushed to prepare their ships, Admiral Do-hyun made one final call. It was to Dr. Hana, the chief medical officer of the fleet. Hana, he said, prepare your teams. We are going to save a planet. On the other end of the line, Hana smiled. She was a small woman with kind eyes. But those who knew her well knew that she was made of steel. My people are ready, Admiral. They have been ready since we heard the message. Good, said Do-hyun. Because when we arrive, there will be a lot of work to do. Far away, on Velha Prime, Ambassador Yuna sat by her granddaughter's bed. The child was sleeping, her breathing shallow and weak. Yuna held her small hand and prayed to whatever gods might be listening. She did not know that help was coming. She did not know that 200 warships were preparing to cross the galaxy for her people. She only knew that she had sent a message into the darkness and hoped that someone, somewhere, would answer. The stars outside her window still looked dark and threatening. But somewhere beyond them, engines were starting. Weapons were loading. And thousands of humans were preparing to do what they did best. They were coming to help. And nothing in the galaxy would stop them. The journey through faster-than-light travel took 7 days. 7 days of preparation, planning, and waiting. On the flagship Seoul's Vengeance, Commander Taewoo studied every piece of information they had about the Krath Empire. The Krath were predators. Their ancestors had hunted in packs on a harsh desert world. They had evolved to be strong, fast, and cruel. In their culture, mercy was weakness. They conquered other species not just for resources, but for the pleasure of domination. Tewu had seen their kind before. Not the Krath specifically, but species like them. Bullies who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They had never met humans in battle. They were about to learn a hard lesson. In the medical bay, Dr. Hana organized her teams. There were 500 doctors, 2,000 nurses, and countless technicians. They had brought medicines for diseases they had never seen. They had brought surgical equipment that could rebuild a body from almost nothing. They had brought hope in metal boxes and plastic containers. But Hana knew that none of it would matter if they could not reach the planet. She had studied the reports. The Krath blockade was tight. Their weapons were powerful. If the human fleet could not break through, all the medicine in the galaxy would be useless. She found Admiral Do-hyun on the observation deck, staring out at the strange colors of faster-than-light space. "Admiral," she said, "my teams are ready. But I need to know something." Do-hyun turned to face her. "Ask, can we win this? Can we really break through a blockade that has held for 3 cycles?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. A small but genuine smile. "The Krath have never fought humans. Hana, they think we are weak because we build hospitals instead of weapons factories. They think we are soft because we spend more on medicine than on warships." He turned back to the window. "They do not understand that we do both. They do not understand that the same species that cured 100 plagues also survived 1,000 wars. They are about to learn." On the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, Lieutenant Minji monitored the communications arrays. She had joined the Navy 5 years ago, fresh from the academy. She had never expected to be part of something like this. A rescue mission that was also an invasion. A medical deployment backed by enough firepower to destroy a moon. But that was what it meant to be human. You helped those who needed help. And if someone tried to stop you, you moved them out of the way. The countdown timer on the main screen reached 0. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The strange colors of transit space disappeared, replaced by the normal blackness of regular space. And there, floating in that blackness, was Velha Prime. It was a beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in gentle patterns. From space, it looked peaceful. It looked like a world where nothing bad could ever happen. But surrounding it, like sharks around a wounded fish, were the Krath warships. Minji counted them quickly. 120 ships. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers. Their dark hulls were covered with weapons. Their engines glowed an angry red. They had been here so long that they had become comfortable. They did not expect anyone to challenge them. That was about to change. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 200 ships, arranged in a precise pattern that had been practiced hundreds of times. At the front were the heavy dreadnoughts, their armor thick and their guns massive. Behind them came the cruisers, fast and deadly. Then the carriers, filled with fighter craft piloted by the best pilots in the fleet. Finally, the support ships, including the medical vessels that were the whole reason for this journey. On Velha Prime, the emergence of the human fleet caused panic and confusion. Ambassador Yuna was in the hospital, sitting beside her granddaughter, when her aide burst through the door. "Ambassador, ships. Many ships have arrived in orbit." Yuna's heart stopped. More Krath? Were they finally coming to end the siege with an invasion? She ran to the nearest observation point, a tall tower in the center of the city. Other Velhari were already there, staring up at the sky with fear in their eyes. But the ships they saw were not Krath. They were different. Smaller. Faster. They moved with a precision and discipline that the Krath ships lacked. And there were so many of them. "Who are they?" whispered a young Velhari beside her. Yuna stared at the sky, her mind racing. She had sent a message to the humans asking for medical aid. Could it be? Could these be the humans? But she had asked for doctors. She had asked for medicine. Why would they send an armada? In orbit, Commander Taewoo opened a communication channel. His face appeared on screens across the human fleet, on the Krath warships, and on the planet below. This is Commander Taewoo of the United Terran Republic flagship Soul's Vengeance. We have come in response to a request for medical assistance from the Velhari Collective. He paused, letting his words sink in. To the people of Vela Prime, help has arrived. Medical teams are standing by. We will reach you soon. Please hold on just a little longer. His voice was warm and gentle. But when he spoke next, his tone changed completely. To the Krath fleet. You are blockading a peaceful world. You are preventing humanitarian aid from reaching people who are dying. This is not acceptable. You have 1 hour to withdraw from this system. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. On the Krath flagship, Commander Grath laughed out loud. His officers laughed with him. These humans were either stupid or insane. 1 hour? A warning? Did they not know who they were dealing with? Grath was a veteran of dozens of campaigns. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and broken the spirits of species far older and more powerful than these humans. These small, soft creatures thought they could threaten him. He opened his own communication channel. His face, with its sharp teeth and yellow eyes, appeared on the human screens. Humans, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. We have heard of you. The healers. You are famous for your hospitals, not your weapons. Do you really think you can threaten the Krath Empire? He leaned forward, his teeth showing in what might have been a smile. Go home, little creatures. Take your doctors and your bandages, and go back to your tiny planet. This is Krath space now. The Velhari belong to us. Commander Taewoo listened to the message without expression. When it ended, he turned to Admiral Do-hyun, who was standing behind him. They do not believe us, Taewoo said. Do-hyun nodded. They will. Begin the countdown. On the planet below, Ambassador Yuna watched the confrontation with growing fear. These humans had come so far, risked so much. But the Krath were powerful. The Krath were experienced. How could these newcomers possibly stand against them? She thought about their message. Medical teams are standing by. Help has arrived. The words were beautiful. But words could not stop plasma cannons. Words could not break a blockade, unless these humans were more than they appeared. She remembered something from the Galactic Council report. The humans had been classified as primitive and harmless, but the report had also mentioned something else. Something about their history. Their planet had been a violent place. They had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years before they finally found peace. What if that violence was not gone? What if it was simply sleeping, waiting to be awakened? In the medical bay, Dr. Hana gathered her senior staff. They were doctors and nurses, healers and caregivers. But today, they wore armor under their white coats. Today they carried weapons alongside their medical kits. In 1 hour, Hana said, we will either be treating patients on that planet or fighting for our lives. Either way, we will do our duty. We will save as many as we can. We will not give up. We will not surrender. That is what it means to be a human healer. Her staff nodded. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They had not traveled across the galaxy to turn back now. The hour passed slowly. Minutes felt like hours. Every eye was on the screens, watching the Krath fleet for any sign of movement. There was none. The Krath ships remained in position. Commander Grath sent no further messages. He was calling their bluff, or what he thought was a bluff. When the countdown reached 0, Admiral Do-hyun stood up from his command chair. He looked around the bridge at his crew. He saw fear in some faces, determination in others. He saw people who had left their homes and families to save strangers on the other side of the galaxy. He was proud of them, proud of all of them. The hour has passed, he said quietly. The Krath have chosen their path. Now we choose ours. He took a deep breath. All ships, this is Admiral Do-hyun. Battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy. Protect the medical ships at all costs. Our mission is to reach that planet and save those people. Nothing will stop us. Nothing. Across the fleet, alarms sounded. Weapons powered up, shields activated. Fighter pilots ran to their ships. Soldiers checked their armor and their weapons. Far below, on Velha Prime, Ambassador Yuna watched the human fleet begin to move. She did not understand what was happening. She had asked for doctors, and they had sent warriors, but as she watched those ships advance toward the Krath blockade, she felt something she had not felt in 3 long cycles. She felt hope. The battle began with a single shot. A Krath gunner, nervous and eager, fired his plasma cannon at the approaching human fleet. The shot flew across the space between the two forces, a bright streak of green energy. It struck the shields of a human destroyer and did nothing, not even a scratch, but it was enough. The humans had their excuse. The Krath had fired first. Admiral Do-hyun did not hesitate. All ships, weapons free, engage the enemy. The human fleet erupted with fire. Hundreds of weapons spoke at once, sending beams of light and streams of missiles toward the Krath blockade. The darkness of space lit up like a storm of lightning, but before the battle could truly begin, Do-hyun did something unexpected. He opened a channel not to the Krath, but to the entire galaxy. His transmission was broadcast on every frequency, to every species that was watching, and many were watching. The Galactic Council had sent observation drones. News services from a dozen worlds were recording everything. This was the first time humans had engaged in combat outside their own system. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Do-hyun appeared on screens across the galaxy. Behind him, through the windows of his ship, explosions flashed and faded. "To all who are watching," he said, "I want you to understand why we are here. We are here because a peaceful people asked for help. We are here because innocent lives are being lost. We are here because that is what humans do." He paused, letting the sounds of battle fill the silence. "You have classified us as a medical species. You have called us primitive. You have said we are only good for healing. And you were right. We are healers. We are doctors. We have spent centuries learning how to cure disease and repair broken bodies." His expression changed. His eyes grew hard. "But you did not understand what that means. To a human, healing is not just about treating symptoms. Healing is about removing the cause of the disease. When there is an infection, we do not simply treat the fever. We find the source, and we destroy it." On the screen behind him, a Krath cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. "This siege is an infection. These warships are the disease, and we have come to cure this planet." Across the galaxy, countless beings watched with shock and confusion. The humans they thought they knew were gentle and kind. The humans on their screens were warriors, cold and precise, and terrifying. On Velha Prime, Ambassador Yuna watched the battle from the observation tower. She did not understand what she was seeing. The human ships moved with incredible coordination. They fought together like parts of a single body. Every shot was precise. Every movement had purpose. A young Velhari named Sunwoo stood beside her. He was a scholar, one of the few who had studied alien species in detail. He had read everything he could find about humans. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I think I understand now." Yuna looked at him. "Explain, please. Why would healers bring warships?" Sunwoo watched the battle for a moment before answering. On their world, humans had to survive against predators for millions of years. They were not the strongest or the fastest creatures on their planet, but they survived. They survived because they learned to fight together. They learned that protecting the group was more important than protecting themselves. He pointed at the human ships. "Do you see how they move? They are not just attacking the Krath. They are protecting each other. They are protecting their medical ships. To them, fighting is just another form of protection, another form of healing." Yuna shook her head. "But we asked for doctors. We did not ask for this." "You asked for help," Sunwoo said gently. "And help is what they brought. All of it. The doctors and the soldiers, the medicine and the weapons. To humans, these are not separate things. They are all part of the same purpose, saving lives. In orbit, the battle raged on. The Krath had numerical disadvantage, but they had experience and confidence. They had won hundreds of battles. They had crushed dozens of species, but they had never fought humans. Commander Grath watched from his flagship as his ships struggled against the human fleet. The humans fought differently than any enemy he had faced. They did not charge forward blindly. They did not panic when hit. They moved in patterns he could not predict, covering each other, supporting each other, and their weapons were devastating. Human technology was supposed to be primitive. Their ships were supposed to be weak. But every shot from a human weapon seemed to find its mark. His shields were failing. His armor was cracking. "Push forward," he roared at his officers. "They are just healers. They cannot match the might of the Krath Empire." But his words sounded hollow even to his own ears. On the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, Commander Taewoo coordinated the battle with calm efficiency. Beside him stood Dr. Hana, watching the tactical displays. "The medical shuttles are ready," she said. "We can launch as soon as there is an opening." "The medical shuttles are ready," Taewoo nodded. "Not yet. The blockade is still too strong. We need to break their center." He turned to his weapons officer, a young woman named Unbi. She was one of the best gunners in the fleet. Her hands moved across her console with incredible speed, targeting and firing, targeting and firing. "Unbi, can you hit their flagship?" Unbi looked at the tactical display. The Krath flagship was in the center of their formation, surrounded by other ships. "A difficult target, yes sir, but I will need support." Taewoo smiled. "You will have it. All ships, focus fire on the enemy flagship. Create an opening for our gunners." 20 human ships turned their weapons toward the center of the Krath formation. They fired together. A coordinated barrage that overwhelmed the shields of the defending ships. For a brief moment, the Krath flagship was exposed. Unbi did not waste the opportunity. Her fingers danced across the console. The Soul's Vengeance main cannon fired, a beam of pure energy that crossed the distance in an instant. The shot hit the Krath flagship directly in the engine section. The ship shuddered. Explosions rippled across its hull. It did not die, but it was wounded badly. Commander Grath felt his ship shake beneath him. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted reports of damage and casualties. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in years: fear. "Pull back," he ordered. "All ships, defensive formation." But his fleet was in chaos. Human ships were everywhere, cutting through their formations, destroying their cruisers, scattering their fighters. The blockade that had held for 3 cycles was falling apart in minutes. Admiral Do-Yoon watched the Krath retreat with satisfaction. But there was no joy in his face. He had seen too many battles to enjoy victory. He knew that every explosion meant deaths. Even enemy deaths. "The blockade is breaking," reported his tactical officer. "We have an opening to the planet." Quote, Do-Hyun turned to Dr. Hana. "It is time. Launch the medical shuttles." Hana nodded. She opened a channel to her teams. "All medical personnel. This is Dr. Hana. The path is clear. Launch immediately. We have a planet to save." Across the fleet, dozens of shuttles launched from the human ships. They were small and fast, painted white with red crosses on their hulls. They carried doctors and nurses, medicine, and equipment. They carried hope. The shuttles flew toward the planet at maximum speed. Human warships formed a protective corridor around them, destroying any Krath fighter that came close. Commander Taewoo gave a simple order: "Protect the shuttles. Every doctor we land is 1,000 lives saved." On the planet below, Ambassador Yuna watched the white shuttles descend through the atmosphere. They looked like stars falling from heaven. She felt tears running down her face, but she did not know if they were tears of joy or disbelief. Sunwoo stood beside her, watching the same scene. "They really came," he whispered. They really came. The first shuttle landed in the main plaza of the capital city. Its doors opened, and humans in white coats poured out. They carried medical equipment and boxes of supplies. They moved with purpose and speed, setting up treatment stations right there in the open air. A human woman approached Ambassador Yuna. She was small, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. But there was strength in her face. The strength of someone who had seen difficult things and had not broken. Ambassador Yuna, she said, I am Dr. Soyeon. We received your message. We are here to help. Yuna could not speak. She could only stare at this small human who had crossed the galaxy to save her people. Soyeon took her hand gently. I know you are tired. I know you have suffered. But it is over now. We are here, and we are not leaving until every one of your people is healthy again. Above them, the battle continued. Human warships held the line against the remaining Krath forces. More shuttles descended, bringing more doctors, more medicine, more hope. On the observation deck of his damaged flagship, Commander Grath watched the human medical shuttles land on the planet. He had lost half his fleet. He had failed to stop the humans. He had failed to hold the blockade. He did not understand. These were healers. These were doctors. How had they defeated his warriors? But deep in his heart, he knew the answer. He had underestimated them. He had thought that kindness was weakness, that mercy was softness. He had been wrong. The humans were kind, but they were not weak. They were merciful, but they were not soft. They had come to heal a planet, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them, not even the Krath Empire. The battle in orbit continued for 6 hours. 6 hours of fire and destruction. 6 hours of courage and sacrifice. 6 hours that changed the history of the galaxy forever. In the cockpit of his fighter, pilot Jeho pushed his ship to its limits. He was part of the 7th Fighter Squadron, one of the best units in the human fleet. Their job was simple: protect the medical shuttles at all costs. A Krath fighter appeared on his scanner, diving toward a shuttle that was descending to the planet. Jeho reacted without thinking. He turned his ship and accelerated, placing himself between the enemy and the shuttle. The Krath pilot fired. Jeho's shields took the hit. He fired back, his shots tearing through the enemy ship. It exploded in a ball of fire. Nice shot, said his wingmate over the radio. Jeho did not answer. He was already scanning for the next threat. There was no time for celebration. There was only the mission. Far below, on the surface of Velha Prime, Dr. Soyeon and her team worked with desperate speed. They had set up a field hospital in the central plaza. Velhari patients were everywhere, lying on beds and blankets, waiting for treatment. The plague that had swept through the planet was like nothing Soyeon had seen before. It attacked the lungs and the blood. It spread through the air and through touch. Without treatment, it was fatal within weeks. But the humans had treatment. They had brought medicines developed in their most advanced laboratories. They had brought doctors who specialized in treating unknown diseases. They had brought hope. Soyeon moved from patient to patient, examining symptoms and prescribing treatments. Her team followed her example, working without rest, without complaint. They had crossed the galaxy for this moment. They would not fail now. A young Velhari child was brought to her, carried by a frantic mother. The child was barely breathing. Her skin was pale and cold. She was close to death. Soyeon recognized the child. This was Ambassador Yuna's granddaughter. Put her here, Soyeon said, pointing to an empty bed. She grabbed her medical kit and went to work. Her hands moved with practiced skill, inserting tubes and injecting medicines. The mother watched with terrified eyes. Please, she whispered, though Soyeon could not understand her language. Please, save her. But some words do not need translation. Soyeon looked up at the mother and nodded. I will do everything I can. In orbit, the battle reached its peak. The Krath had regrouped around their damaged flagship. They were preparing for one final push, a desperate attack to break through the human lines and reach the planet. Commander Grath stood on his bridge, surrounded by smoke and sparks. Half his crew was dead. His ship was falling apart. But he would not surrender. The Krath did not surrender. All ships, he ordered. Full attack. Target the planet. Destroy the medical teams. Show these humans the price of challenging the Krath. His remaining ships surged forward. 50 vessels, damaged but still dangerous, flying straight toward Velha Prime. Admiral Dohyun saw the attack coming. He understood immediately what Grath was trying to do. The Krath could not win the battle, but they could still cause damage. They could still kill. All ships, intercept the enemy, Dohyun ordered. Do not let them reach the planet. The human fleet moved to block the Krath attack. Ships collided in space, exchanging fire at close range. Fighters swarmed around larger vessels like angry insects. Explosions lit up the darkness. Captain Wu Jin of the destroyer Busan's Light found himself in the path of a Krath cruiser. The enemy ship was heading straight for the planet, ignoring everything else. Its weapons were charged. Ready to fire on the surface, Wu Jin made a decision in an instant. He turned his ship and positioned it directly in the cruiser's path. "Sir, what are you doing?" asked his first officer. "Our shields are still strong," Wu Jin replied. "We can take more hits than the planet can." The Krath cruiser fired. The beams struck the Busan's Light, shaking the entire ship. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. But the ship held. The shots that would have killed thousands on the planet below were absorbed by human shields and human armor. Wu Jin fired back. At this range, even a wounded destroyer could be deadly. His shots tore through the cruiser's weakened shields and ripped into its hull. The Krath ship broke apart, spinning away in pieces. The Busan's Light was badly damaged. Half its systems were offline. But Wu Jin and his crew were alive, and the planet was safe. "Status report," Wu Jin said. "Engines at 30%. Weapons at 50%. Shields at 10%. And failing." Wu Jin nodded. "Good enough. Find me another target." His crew stared at him. They were exhausted and frightened, but they were also inspired. If their captain could keep fighting, so could they. The battle raged on. Human ships fell, but Krath ships fell faster. The enemy's desperate attack was being stopped. Piece by piece. In his fighter, Jeho received new orders. A Krath carrier was trying to flee the battle, heading for the edge of the system. If it escaped, it would bring reinforcements. The battle would start again. "7th Squadron," Jeho said. "Follow me. We are going to stop that carrier." His squadron fell in behind him. 12 fighters against a carrier. The odds were terrible. But Jeho had an idea. The carrier was launching its own fighters to cover its escape. Jeho led his squadron straight toward them. The two groups of fighters met in a swirl of fire and death, but Jeho did not stop to fight. He flew past the enemy fighters, through their formation, taking hits but not slowing down. His squadron followed, losing ships along the way. When he reached the carrier, only 4 fighters remained, 4 small ships against a massive vessel. But Jeho knew the carrier's weakness. Its hangar bay. The doors were open. Still launching fighters. The inside of the ship was exposed. "Into the hangar," Jeho ordered. "Fire everything." The 4 fighters dove into the carrier's hangar bay. They flew through the interior of the ship, firing at everything they saw. Fuel tanks, ammunition stores, power conduits. The carrier began to die from the inside. Jeho's ship was hit. Warning lights filled his cockpit. He had seconds before the ship failed completely. He aimed for the largest fuel tank he could see and ejected. The explosion was enormous. It ripped through the carrier, destroying it completely. The blast sent Jeho's escape pod spinning away into space. He watched the carrier die from his tiny pod. He had done it. He had stopped the reinforcements from coming. The battle was won. On the surface, the Velhari did not know about Jeho's sacrifice. They did not know about Wu Jin's courage or Unbi's skill. They only knew that the enemy ships were falling from the sky, burning and breaking. and they knew that the humans were saving them. In the field hospital, Dr. Soyeon completed her treatment of Ambassador Yuna's granddaughter. The child's breathing was steadier now. Her color was returning. She would survive. Soyeon looked up at the sky. She could see the flashes of battle through the clouds. She could see the trails of falling ships. She knew that people were dying up there, fighting to protect her and her patients. She returned to her work. She could not help them fight, but she could honor their sacrifice by saving as many lives as possible. When the last Krath ship finally retreated, the cheering could be heard across the planet. Velhari poured out of their shelters, looking up at the sky with disbelief and joy. The siege was over. The enemy was gone. In orbit, Admiral Do-hyun surveyed the aftermath. 23 human ships destroyed. Thousands of crew members dead. The price of victory was high, but on the planet below, millions of Velhari were still alive. Medical teams were saving lives every minute. The plague was being stopped. Food was being distributed. The dying world was beginning to heal. Do-hyun received a message from Dr. Hana. She was on the surface, covered in dust and exhausted, but smiling. "Admiral, the child is going to live. Ambassador Yuna's granddaughter. We saved her." Do-hyun closed his eyes for a moment. One child. In a battle that had cost thousands of lives, one child had been saved, and that was enough. That was why they had come. "Well done, Doctor," he said. "Well done." The human fleet began to reorganize. Rescue ships searched for survivors. Repair crews worked on damaged vessels. Medical shuttles continued to land on the planet, bringing more supplies and more doctors. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The primitive species had won. The healers had defeated warriors. Everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about humans was wrong. In his escape pod, drifting through the wreckage of the battle, pilot Jae-ho was rescued by a human search team. He was injured and exhausted, but he was alive. When they brought him back to the flagship, he found that he had become famous. The pilot, who had destroyed the Krath carrier from the inside. The hero, who had stopped the reinforcements. But Jae-ho did not feel like a hero. He felt like what he was. A human being who had done his duty. He had protected those who could not protect themselves. That was all. That was everything. On Velha Prime, as the sun set on the first day of freedom in 3 cycles, Ambassador Yuna sat beside her granddaughter's bed. The child was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady and strong. Dr. Soyeon stood nearby, checking the medical equipment. She looked as exhausted as Yuna felt. "Thank you," Yuna said softly. "I do not have words to express my gratitude." Soyeon smiled. "You do not need words, Ambassador. This is what we do. This is who we are." "I'm Goer." Yuna thought about that. She thought about the warships that had come to save her people. She thought about the doctors who had worked without rest. She thought about the soldiers who had died so that strangers could live. "I asked for medical aid," she said. "I did not expect this." Soyeon sat down beside her. "When we received your message, we knew that sending doctors alone would not be enough. The Krath would have destroyed them before they reached you. So, we sent everything. The doctors and the soldiers, the healers and the warriors, because to us, they are the same thing." Yuna did not fully understand. Perhaps she never would. But she understood enough. The humans had come to save her people, and nothing in the galaxy had been able to stop them. Outside the window, human soldiers were helping Velhari rebuild their homes. Human doctors were treating the sick and the wounded. Human ships were delivering food and supplies. A new chapter had begun. For the Velhari, for the humans, and for the entire galaxy. Nothing would ever be the same again. 3 weeks passed after the battle. 3 weeks of healing, rebuilding, and change. On Velha Prime, the transformation was remarkable. The plague that had killed thousands was now under control. Human medicines and human doctors had worked miracles. Hospitals that had been empty of supplies were now fully stocked. Clinics that had been overwhelmed were now operating smoothly. Dr. Hana had worked without rest for the first 5 days. When her team finally forced her to sleep, she had treated over 200 patients personally. She had performed surgeries that Velhari doctors had thought impossible. She had saved lives that everyone had given up on. But she did not do it alone. Thousands of human medical workers spread across the planet, treating the sick, teaching new techniques, and building systems that would help the Velhari long after the humans left. Admiral Do-hyun also came to the surface. He did not come in his uniform with all its medals and decorations. He came in simple clothes, looking like any ordinary human. He visited the refugee camps that had formed during the siege. He helped distribute food. He played with children who had never seen a human before. The Velhari watched him with wonder. This was the man who had commanded an armada. This was the warrior who had broken the Krath blockade. And here he was, carrying boxes of supplies and smiling at babies. Ambassador Yuna found him in one of the camps, sitting with a group of elderly Velhari. They did not share a language, but somehow they were communicating. They were laughing together. "Admiral," Yuna said, approaching carefully, "I have been looking for you." Do-hyun stood and bowed respectfully. "Ambassador, how is your granddaughter?" "Jo-fyun daughter. She is recovering well. Dr. Soyeon says she will be completely healthy within a month." Yuna paused. "I came to thank you. Not as an ambassador, but as a grandmother. You saved my family." Do-hyun shook his head. "I only commanded ships, Ambassador. The doctors saved your family. The soldiers protected them. I simply gave orders. You gave the order to come." Yuna said, "You could have ignored our message. You could have decided it was not your problem. But you came." Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he looked up at the sky, where human ships still orbited, keeping watch. "When I was a young officer," he said slowly, "I served on a ship that responded to a disaster on a mining colony. There had been an explosion. Thousands were trapped underground. We worked for weeks to rescue them. I carried survivors out of the tunnels with my own hands." He looked back at Yuna. "On the last day, I found a child in the darkness. She was buried under rubble, barely alive. I spent 6 hours digging her out. When I finally pulled her free, she opened her eyes and smiled at me." His voice became soft. "That smile changed everything I believed about being a soldier. I realized that our greatest victory is not defeating enemies. It is saving lives. That child is now a doctor herself, helping others the way we helped her." Yuna understood. These humans were not warriors who happened to know medicine. They were healers who had learned to fight. Their purpose had always been the same: to protect life. The Galactic Council sent a delegation to investigate what had happened. They arrived 2 weeks after the battle, expecting to find chaos and destruction. Instead, they found a planet that was coming back to life. The human diplomat assigned to meet them was a young woman named Nyan. She was calm and professional, but there was steel behind her polite words. The council representatives demanded an explanation. Humans had engaged in military action without authorization. They had violated dozens of galactic laws. They had challenged an empire that had been recognized by the council for centuries. Nyan listened to all their complaints. Then she responded, "You classified us as a medical species. You said we were primitive. You said we were only good for healing." She paused and looked at each council member in turn. "You were correct. We are healers. We are doctors. We spend more on hospitals than on weapons. We train more nurses than soldiers." She leaned forward. "But you misunderstood what healing means to humans. To us, healing is not passive. It is not simply treating wounds and curing diseases. Healing is active. It is aggressive. When there is sickness, we attack it. When there is suffering, we fight it. And when an army surrounds innocent people and watches them die, we treat that army like any other infection." She stood up. "We removed the infection. The patient will live. That is what healers do." The council representatives did not know how to respond. They had never encountered a species like this. A species that combined compassion and violence so completely. A species that would cross the galaxy to save strangers and destroy anyone who tried to stop them. The news of what had happened at Velha Prime spread across the galaxy. Every species, every world, every government learned about the humans. They learned about the armada that had answered a cry for help. They learned about the battle that had broken the Krath blockade. They learned about the doctors who had saved a dying planet. The Krath Empire, shaken by their defeat, requested peace negotiations for the first time in their history. Commander Grath was removed from command. A new government rose to power. One that was willing to talk instead of conquer. On other worlds, species that had been victims of aggression looked to the stars with new hope. If the humans would help the Velhari, perhaps they would help others too. Perhaps there was a force in the galaxy that would stand against bullies and tyrants. Ambassador Yuna was asked to speak before the Galactic Council. She traveled to their great station, a massive structure at the center of the galaxy. She stood before representatives of 1,000 species and told them what she had witnessed. "We called for doctors," she said. "They sent warriors. We asked for medicine. They brought weapons. And in that moment, I did not understand. I was confused and frightened. I thought they had misunderstood our message." She looked out at the countless faces watching her. But I was wrong. They understood perfectly. They knew that doctors cannot help if they cannot reach the patient. They knew that medicine is useless if the patient is killed before it can work. So they did what any good healer does. They removed the obstacle. They eliminated the threat. They created a safe space for healing to happen. Her voice grew stronger. "The humans showed us something we had forgotten. Mercy without strength is helpless. Kindness without protection is weakness. If you truly want to help someone, you must be willing to fight for them. The humans are willing. They have proven it with blood and sacrifice." She finished with words that would be remembered for generations. They expected medical aid. They received human warships instead. And in that moment, the galaxy learned something important. Humanity's greatest medicine has always been hope. And they will deliver it, if necessary, with every weapon they have. The council chamber was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It spread through the hall until every representative was standing, acknowledging the truth of her words. Back on Velha Prime, the young scholar Sun Wu watched the transmission of Ambassador Yuna's speech. He sat in a rebuilt library, surrounded by books and screens. He had begun writing a history of what he called the human intervention. He looked out the window. Human soldiers were teaching Velhari children to play a game they called soccer. The children laughed and ran, chasing a ball across a field that had been a battlefield just weeks ago. Sun Wu smiled and began to write. In the third cycle of the Krath siege, when all hope seemed lost, the Velhari collective sent a message to a young species on the other side of the galaxy. They asked for medicine. They asked for doctors. They asked for help. The humans answered. They came not with a few ships carrying supplies, but with an armada carrying an army. They came not just to heal, but to protect. They came not just to treat the symptoms, but to cure the disease. They fought a battle that should have been impossible to win. They saved millions of lives that should have been lost. They showed the galaxy that power and compassion are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. The humans have a saying, first, do no harm. But they have another saying, one that is less famous, protect those who cannot protect themselves. These two ideas guide everything they do. They will heal your wounds, but they will also destroy whatever caused them. He paused, looking at the children playing outside. Then he wrote the final lines. They expected medical aid. They received human warships instead, and the galaxy will never be the same. Sun Wu saved his work and closed his screen. Outside, a human doctor was checking on patients in a nearby clinic. A human engineer was helping repair a damaged building. A human soldier was sharing food with a Velhari family. They were still here, the humans. Still helping, still healing, still protecting. And Sun Wu knew with absolute certainty, that if the Velhari ever needed help again, the humans would come. They would always come. That was their nature. That was their purpose. That was their medicine. In orbit above the planet, the human fleet maintained its watch. Admiral Do-hyun had returned to his flagship, but many ships remained. They would stay until the Velhari were strong enough to defend themselves. They would stay as long as they were needed. On the bridge of the Soul's Vengeance, Commander Taewoo looked down at the planet below. It was beautiful again. Green and blue and full of life. Lieutenant Minji approached him. "Sir, we have received a message from command. We are ordered to remain on station for another 3 months." Taewoo nodded. "Good. There is still work to do." Minji hesitated. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did we really come here? We crossed the entire galaxy for people we had never met. We fought a battle against an empire we had no quarrel with. We lost ships and soldiers and friends. Why?" Taewoo was silent for a long moment. Then he pointed at the planet below. "Look at that world, Lieutenant. Look at the cities and the forests and the oceans. Look at the millions of people who are alive today because we came. That is why." He turned to face her directly. "Humans are not special because of our technology or our weapons or our intelligence. We are special because of our choices. We choose to help. We choose to protect. We choose to cross the galaxy when someone calls for aid." He smiled. "That is what makes us human. And that is why we will always answer." Minji nodded slowly. She understood. They all understood. Below them, on the surface of a world that had been saved by humans, life continued. Children played. Families reunited. The wounded healed. The grieving found hope. And above them, watching over them like guardians from the stars, the human fleet kept watch, ready to protect, ready to heal, ready to answer any call for help, no matter how far, because that was what humans did. That was who they were, forever.